lovely day here in central Pennsylvania. Welcome to my stream of consciousness vlog. Take you for a little tour of the northern Lancaster County countryside. I'll ramble about who knows what. Hopefully there's not too much wind noise. Hopefully the speaker's working or the microphone's working, because it didn't the first time I tried this. This is a new setup I'm testing out. Today we're riding the 2008 Triumph Bonneville. A wonderful machine. Had it for a few years. Currently got 3 bikes. If you watched any of my videos, you've seen probably all of them. I did one specific to the Bonneville. I did one for the Royal Enfield as an introduction. I have yet to do one on the Tiger, but there is a brief video of that that I recorded a problem I had with it. I'll talk a little bit about my history of riding and choices in bikes. I came late to motorcycle riding. I did it when I was a kid. My dad got me a little Trail 50 after a very recalcitrant mini bike. And then he had a Trail 90 at the time, and as I got older and bigger, I took over riding that. I spent quite a few days and the weekends riding around our northern Pennsylvania area illegally with no motorcycle license, no license at all, as a matter of fact. But it's an area that police patrols are about non-existent, and my parents were very gullible into thinking that I was just riding around the local area, a couple of the dirt roads, and actually I was quite far afield many days. But anyway, after that I didn't ride again for a long time. Started again in my late 40s. Just developed an interest all of a sudden. I don't know where it came from. Found some websites with adventure riding, and I thought, hey, that sounds like a lot of fun. So after a lot of research, I got my first bike, an adventure bike. The Swiss Army knife of adventure bikes, the Kawasaki KLR 650. Had that for a few years. It was an old bike. I think it was an 87 or something. I paid peanuts for it. I think it was $1,200. And it was a little beat up, but I had a lot of fun with that. I rode that for a couple years. But a couple of problems with that bike. The problem with it is it's mostly it's geared more for off-road. I mean, it's a good enough road bike. It's okay for commuting and riding around these roads like we're doing today, but if you want to go ride dirt, it's about an hour ride for me to get from where I live to any number of dirt roads. And riding that bike on the highway to get there was just tiresome. Too many vibrations, mostly through the pegs, bothered me more than through the seat or the handlebars. And just grew weary of that after a while. And it was a very tall bike, very tall, kind of top heavy, even though it wasn't really heavy. But I had a lot of fun with it, but kind of figured out that probably should have something a little bit more road oriented, because I tend to go out and ride on the weekends and go for several hours just riding around these back roads and so on. So I started looking around and found a guy that wanted to get a KLR. He had a V-Strom. He was willing to do a partial trade. So he liked my KLR and I liked his V-Strom, and we did a deal. V-Strom was like going from a Geo Metro to a Cadillac Fleetwood. More power, smooth power, rode nice, quiet, smooth. Many, many things the KLR was not. But I had the DL650 Suzuki for a couple years, and I found out I was riding it less than I did the KLR, and I asked myself why. Well, part of the problem was when I did take it on dirt roads, I was not comfortable in it at all. Always felt like I was going to drop it. And it was kind of a top-heavy pig of a bike. Again, not really that heavy, but where it carries its weight just really didn't work out too well for me. And it was a nice bike, unlike the KLR. I dropped the KLR, I didn't care because it was always scraped up. But the V-Strom was a pretty nice bike. It didn't have a ding on it. So, always a concern about dropping it, and just thought, this really isn't what I wanted. Great road bike, but other than that, it really wasn't doing it for me. I took a trip on it. I rode on the, where did I take that? I did a trip down south someplace. Oh, I went down to Knoxville, that's right. I went down to Knoxville, bought my truck, and loaded the bike up in the back and drove the truck home. So that was a nice trip on that bike. Taught me that I like touring. But the bike just didn't ingratiate itself. And it was kind of ugly. I never really liked the appearance of it. It's more of a tool in the toolbox, and it was a really passionate thing for me to be riding. So the desire to get something else came, and I started to look around. And in the meantime, I'd always wanted a Bonneville. I'll have to tell a story about the Bonneville sometime, what turned me on to that, but I started looking at Bonnevilles while I had the V-Strom. I thought, I could have another bike too. Have two, one for each thing. Two different bikes for two different kinds of riding, because bikes tend to be very specific. So I started browsing around, and it was a very dismal point in my life. I'd gotten downsized. I had to take a job that turned out to be a real disaster. And, basically, I was treated like crap every day of the week that I went in there. Had to work long hours, and it just was a very miserable time. And during that time period, I started to browse at Bonneville's, and I went to one of the dealers, had a couple of them, used ones for sale. And they had two. They had this one, which was a carbureted 2008. They had a fuel-injected 2010, I think it was. And I'd ridden both, and really, honestly, I didn't feel there was any real marked difference between the carb and non-carb version. And the carb version was a little cheaper, and it was more attractive. I liked the black without the scallop tank. I didn't grow up in that era, so the scallop paint job really didn't mean anything to me. I kind of liked the solid black with a decent amount of chrome. And they shot me a price that I couldn't refuse, and very uncharacteristic for me. I made an impulse buy and rode it home that day. And I've had it ever since, and it's been a wonderful bike. I'll talk more about the Bonneville later. So I had the Bonnie, I had the V-Strom. I still knew the Suzuki wasn't the right bike for me. And so I looked at some other things. I had myself convinced on paper that a Honda NX700 was perfect. I like low-end torque. I'm not big on screaming horsepower. I don't pop wheelies. I'm not into sport bikes. So something very leisurely to do on tours and a little bit of light off-road work would probably be perfect. So I found a used one at a dealership and rode it, and I'm never more disappointed in a machine than I was in that NC700X. I don't know why, but that bike is just the epitome of a dull butter knife. It just has no character. Nothing about it made you want to twist the throttle. Didn't matter how practical it was. We were speeding. And I just had no desire to buy it. Very disappointed in that. So next I rode a BMW single. Can't remember what it was, an F650 maybe. And a mile from the dealership with that, I realized I didn't want that. I didn't want to go back to a single. It's too rough, too vibey. BMW twins were just massive bikes, GS's, just massive adventure bikes. Too big for me. Wasn't into that. Didn't want all that weight. And they're expensive, and they got maintenance concerns and all that. So I'm at the BMW/Triumph dealership, and the guy says to me, after I bring the F650 back, he says, "Well, why don't you take a Tiger 800 out for a ride?" So this is how dense I was. When it came to Triumphs, the only thing I knew about was basically the Bonneville one. I didn't pay attention to any of the other ones. I knew they made the Tiger. I thought they were all 1200s. And all big and heavy and expensive and so on. So I hadn't paid any attention to the Tiger line, but they made the 800. And I took that out and rode that and absolutely was just gobsmacked by how good it was. That triple engine is fantastic. So I didn't buy that particular one, but I did buy a Tiger 800 from a private seller not too long after that. And that's the one I currently have. So completely by accident, I'd become a Triumph fanboy. I thought about looking for something different than the Tiger because I've had it for a while and it too is a little top heavy feeling and kind of like something maybe a little lighter feeling for driving on the gravel roads. But every time I ride it I go, I don't want to give up this triple engine. It's just so smooth, it makes such great noises. It's like the perfect marriage of displacement and power for somebody like me. So the Tiger stays, although the new 900 is pretty appealing. They fixed a lot of the things that bother me about the Tiger 800, like the gears, gear spacing, gear ratios, and they moved the weight around a little bit and given it a little bit more low-end torque instead of having to rev the thing so much to pull out. So it's got a lot going for it, but I don't buy new bikes, so $10,000, $12,000 is not in the cards for this guy. I'm going to have to wait a few years till they hopefully depreciate down to my level. So the only Tiger, or the only way I'll get rid of the Tiger is likely to get another one. So 2 Triumphs then. Wound up selling the Suzuki privately. Young guy, very happy to have that. I think he got a nice bike for what he paid. And then came the Royal Enfield Bullet. So if you watch my videos or have dug a little deeper and figured out that I've written a few books, one of the books I wrote, which is the last one I actually completed at the time of this video, was the Dodging Bullets book that I wrote about buying and fixing the Royal Enfield that I wound up getting. I was looking for something to tinker with. This 25-mile-an-hour speed limit is just ridiculous through here. Sorry. So I was looking for a project bike. I want something kind of older, something simple to work on. A single cylinder would fit the bill perfectly. I'm not wild about most Japanese motorcycles. It turns out I'm not a big fan. Still haven't found a BMW to ride that I came away with thinking, man, I gotta have one of these. BMWs just don't work for me. Motorcycles, anyway. The cars I love. The bikes just don't do it. So I was kind of leaning towards British or maybe something Italian, Moto Guzzis and some older Triumphs and things like that. And I rode a bunch of stuff. The old British Twins are great bikes, but they're maintenance, and I wasn't sure I wanted to dive right into something that quote-unquote complex. And I also didn't want to duplicate kind of what I had either with this current 2008 Bonneville. So I'm browsing the marketplace on Facebook, and I find this Royal Enfield in pieces. Sort of together, but the engine's apart. And the ad said that it didn't need much to make it run. And the price was ridiculous. It was basically asking the price of a running version of one of those. So I just kind of shrugged it off and didn't really do anything about it. And a few weeks later, I see the ad has returned. And the price is substantially less. So I sent him an email. So you can read about it in my book, Dodging Bullets. It's a very affordable book. I think it's only like $1. And the ebook version, check that out on Amazon, Dodging Bullets. I'll tell you the story of buying that and putting it back together, but it was a lot of fun to work on. It's a very simple motorcycle. Anybody looking to get involved in just tinkering with a bike or fixing one up could do much worse than getting a bullet. Yeah, the quality's a little questionable, but it's not horrible. And since putting it back together again, I've had the most fun riding it. So, it's currently apart again. There's an ongoing problem with the front brake that I think I've finally figured out. Just some stuff that's kind of gummed up and not working properly. That and a bogus brake cable. A couple of things that conspired to cause problems with it, but the bike itself has been very easy to live with. It's not fast, but you don't care. It's a nicer, leisurely thing to ride. So is 3 bikes enough? Well, of course not. I'm always on the lookout for the next bike. But I have a very limited sphere, not fear. I have a limited sphere of interest when it comes to bikes. I only like certain things, and I tend to only like standards, and I lean towards nakeds. I don't like sport bikes. I don't like bikes with lots of fairings. I don't like cruisers. The seating position just isn't comfortable for a guy my age with my back problems. And so I've made a couple of criteria that I follow when I look at other bikes. Rules to keep me out of trouble. So I stay with bikes that are under 1 liter. So I don't really think you need more than that. I never ride 2 up, so I don't need the extra power. I try to stay under 500 pounds. I don't like heavy bikes. If I can't pick it up by myself, I really shouldn't be riding it, I feel. And I prefer less than 4 cylinders. So I don't think I need more than that. The triple in the Tiger has proven that 3 is plenty. 4 just adds more weight, more complexity, more heat. Now, that said, the Kawasaki Z900RS, which is a retro standard, I could be talked into that bike. Every time I sit on one, I think, yeah, that might be for me. Of other bikes yet that I haven't gotten that I'd like to try. I still need to get a Moto Guzzi, either a V7 or something like a V50. Royal Enfield twins that they come out with now are fabulous bikes. Could easily be talked into getting one of those. And I also like to add a vintage Royal Enfield twin to my stable if I can find one. They're not easy to come by though. Nice ones command a pretty big price. Well, it's big to me is like 10,000 bucks. It's not a lot in the whole grand scheme of things. But I'm a $5,000 kind of guy. So if I could find one that needs a little work like my Bullet did, I think that would be fantastic. I really want a Norton Commando, even though I know they're bad for me. And I wouldn't turn down a Triumph. Although I wouldn't want to get another Bonneville. I'd probably take something like a 500, I don't know if that's a TR6C or what that is, but again, to keep those models straight back in the 60s. Something with a single carb. Just to keep things simple for me. And as ridiculous as it sounds, as much as I poo-poo Harley Davidsons, I do like a nice Sportster. I like the Roadster models. The earlier ones, not the ones that they make now. I like something with a full fender in the back. The truncated fender look doesn't really work for me. I'm not a big fan of that. I like my motorcycles to be traditional looking. So, oh, look at this genius. So could I get a Harley that's under a liter? Well, yeah, I could. Get a 883. What do they weigh? Well, not sure about that. They might be a little heavy. Certainly are cheap enough. Sportsters don't hold their value real well, and you can pick those things up for not a lot of money. A couple grand you can get one. So I don't know that I'd like one. I did ride one. Wasn't too impressed with the suspension on it. Power level's okay. The handling's okay. The brakes are okay. It's not a bike that I probably have a burning desire to own. But yeah, there's something about them. You know, I get the whole V-twin thing. It's pretty appealing. On that topic, I'd love to have a Moto Morini. Oh. I rode one of those, a 500cc. What a great bike. There's a bike that actually spoke to me. Nimble handling, wonderful noises, good engine. Brakes are Speaking of dead Sportsters, it's always a Sportster that's broken down by the side of the road. Why is that? It's a sign. because I have 3 dogs, wouldn't a Ural be fun? I did ride one briefly in a parking lot once. I can drive a sidecar unit. I mean, I get the concept. It doesn't freak me out to make the turns or do anything with that, but Urals are ridiculously expensive. My God. That was a mule. I just can't understand the price for those things. You'd be hard-pressed to go over 65, 70 miles an hour with one and still have the reliability of a Russian vehicle, so I know they're better now. All you Euro guys can not put your comments down there at the bottom. I don't need to read them. Isn't it enough that I want one? Even knowing their shortcomings. Same with the Royal Enfield Bullet. I knew the shortcomings going in. And that's part of the charm. They're fun. Ducati. See what this thing sounds like when it pulls away. Disappointingly quiet. So there's my stream of consciousness on bikes and my bike history. We're out here riding around on a coronavirus Saturday. It's the warmest it's been so far this year, I think. Sun's mostly out. Bonneville's the only bike I had together, so that's what we're going to ride today. Kind of itching to get the Tiger back on the road. Apparently rebuilding the forks in it, so should be able to finish that job up tomorrow. It's supposed to rain. Get the Enfield back together, the brakes fixed, hopefully. 4th or 5th time should be the charm. So that's it for Stream of Consciousness, vlog number 1. Hope you've enjoyed riding along. Any questions for me? Hit me up in the comments below. As the weather gets warmer, look for more videos on motorcycles and cars and trucks. Until next time, keep the shiny side up. See you later.